Yeah, because of I've had to shift things around and kind of move the evil around. So I would hope it's suitably dark and evil. It's only 2 in the afternoon, in case people are wondering, but I just always have the curtains drawn and candles, you know.
Candles lit at both ends.
Well, that's for sure.
So what's going on? How is things? Have you
Oh, now you're quite low.
Okay. Have you been away on your travels at all now?
I think you need to speak into the microphone. That might be the problem.
Is that any better?
Oh, damn, turn that down.
Where have you been on your travels then?
Fucking hell. Okay, try that again.
Where have you been on your travels then? Still too high. Let me turn it down a bit here. Okay. What about that? Is that okay?
No, has to be further up than that.
Further up than that?
Yeah.
What about that? Is that all right?
Oh, that's good. So what are you using there with your little mic and organization to get, you just speak, your voice is coming through that little speaker, is it?
Yeah, but I've got like a USB so I can plug a microphone into it, which is I think how we need to do the audio for doing that video.
Right. A guy I was talking to who does this web thing called Into the Necrosphere, he advised me on what to do that split screen thing, but you need to download like a third party platform.
Yep. So I think we'll probably just need to do a wee bit of homework for it, and then we'll be grand, you know.
Yeah. I've just been catching up on Chimp Empire, so.
Tell me about Chimp Empire then. What's the deal with it?
Well, it's the title is kind of clues in the name. It's just about 2 gangs of chimps and their daily shenanigans and lives, and you know.
What about the feces throwing? Like, is there a lot of it going on, or what?
They seem to mainly restrict the feces throwing for humans.
Right. Okay, that's a sign.
So far, there's been no feces throwing, no riding, and when they come to rip those little kind of squeaky monkeys apart, when they catch them, it kind of just sort of pans off into the distance, you know.
Right. Yeah, because there people who are going to watch that do not want to see where the monkeys come from. That's understandable, really, isn't it?
No. It's I mean, you know, you can see the brutal version anywhere you want. Usually in the Twitter, you know, Instagram feed of Joe Rogan or something. He seems obsessed with monkeys ripping each other to bits. But you know, I mean, do you really? Do you
Not really, you know, like it's like sort of saying because you eat chicken that you should go and chop the heads off a load of chickens to get the flavor for it, you know?
Yeah, although probably if you did see that, it might put you off eating chicken, which probably ultimately is probably better for you, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Alan Abel advocates veganism right here, right now.
In the flesh.
Yeah.
In the flesh.
So yeah, I've moved the evil around. So because my normal backdrops, like I said, that came from doing an interview before I really understood what Zoom was with some guy, and then I was horrified to realize I was just standing in my kitchen, and I just thought I have a reputation to uphold. I can't just be in my kitchen in front of my utensils doing interviews.
Because people could see things that they don't associate with your brand, like a salad tosser or something like that, you know, or something for like cubing a piece of fruit, you know.
I mean, they probably would associate the word tosser on some level, but hey, I'm here all day.
That's one of those jokes that does not work outside of Ireland and England, really, doesn't it?
No, it certainly doesn't. So then I thought to myself, what I can't be doing with this. So I started to hang the backdrops around the place, and it made this kind of little sort of studio. But the backdrops are stuck in County Cavan, which I mean, who would want that upon any inanimate object?
I don't have any backdrops, do I? I've got a Guinness mirror and some zombie posters. I've got a poster up that I just got for Clash of the Titans, and like there's like mascots on it. So there's like Vic Rattlehead, obviously, and then there's the Slayer guy who seems to be like a German soldier. He's a German helmet with a skull.
Oh, right. Inside it. Yeah, that was the Slatanic Wehrmacht kind of guy.
Yeah. And then really confusingly, there's a third one, which is one of the faces from Practice What You Preach. You know, the Testament guy.
Oh, yeah.
Doing this. So his face is made of sand. So there's one of them as well. But no suicidal tendencies head.
Well, that was one of the biggest sort of, I think, um, things. What could you call it? Fuck ups of back in the day. Clash of the Titans was announced in the Point Depot for here back in 1991, and the tickets were, running out the door, as they say, and then it just got like cancelled. And I think we had Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax, and Testament, right? No, or is that wrong?
The European one was Megadeth, Slayer, Testament, and Suicidal Tendencies. So no Anthrax.
All right, okay.
They were doing the Iron Maiden No Prayer for the Dying tour at that time.
All right, but the No Prayer for the Dying tour, I think here was Wolfsbane, right? Or was that Fear the Dark tour?
No, I think it was maybe no, it wasn't Anthrax. It must have been Wolfsbane because you would have known about it if it was Anthrax. But yeah, by all accounts, Clash of the Titans went very well. It's kind of weird because a lot of people who said they went to go and see Megadeth and Alice in Chains in the Point Depot in 1991 said that it wasn't particularly full, that there was only a couple of thousand people at it.
I heard that as well. I didn't go. I don't really know why. I didn't go, and yeah, I heard the same thing. It was about 6,000-7,000, which is pretty much exactly what Megadeth got the last time in the Point Depot as well.
Your Dave Mustaine accidentally slipped what their fee for gigs was there the other day, $55,000.
That's fucking so low when you really consider it. I mean, is he talking about like for one of those Lamb of God sort of mini arena shows, or?
I think so. Well, I think it's just for any show basically that they're doing. That's what their fee is. No, and I guess they'd probably do like half the same again on merch anyway, like because t-shirts are like $50, aren't they? Like
But like, there's bands that we know who probably are getting almost that fee already. The Amon Amarths and stuff, Behemoths and stuff. I mean, I would have if Megadeth. It seems fucking bizarre that they shouldn't be on for a big festival, €120,000, considering they've sold about 40 million records.
Well, I would guess maybe what that is their festival, or their festival fee is going to be a lot higher. This must be, as you said, for the, their fee and then Lamb of God's fee. Because I think they went through a thing basically where they didn't want to have to play places like the Ambassador or whatever anymore.
Yeah.
They were like, from now on, let's try and make sure that we're playing in arenas, even if they're small ones. So we need to have another band. And because Dave has such a problem singing these days, it probably makes kind of sense. So he doesn't have to do long sets,
Yeah, it makes sense anyway. I mean, I think that, Cannibal Corpse were the masters of this. They always had support bands from the up and coming younger death metal scene. And for whatever reason, Cannibal Corpse has managed to reinvent themselves 3-4 times already with newer kids. Whatever it is, the imagery and the logo, they're pulling more people than ever, whereas other death metal bands in that era are on the way down, because they always had like, Thy Art Is Murder or whatever that is, supporting them more,
Would you say it's kind of the same thing for Napalm Death? Do you think that every new generation, the go-tos for getting into that kind of thing tends to be Napalm Death, Cannibal Corpse?
I don't think that you could put Napalm on the same level as Cannibal. I mean, when we last played in Canada, Cannibal were playing the week before, and I think they'd pulled like 2,500 people.
Whoa!
And
amazing.
I mean, their last tour of Europe, they were pulling seemingly more people than ever. And Napalm, I wouldn't put in the same category.
Whenever that tornado hit, Crypta's bus, they were doing Morbid Angel, and I think they were like drawing 400 or something like that.
Yeah, but that's only Morbid Angel is just in the USA, right? No, Crypto were on the Deicide tour, right?
No, I thought it was Morbid Angel.
Oh, maybe so. Yeah. You got to stack the lineup with 3 or 4 bands. 300-400 sounds about right for Morbid in the States. I don't know what they would do in Europe anymore, but Cannibal just have this. They just reinvent it every time, And we played a gig with them. I don't know, a year ago or something in the open air in Essen, and they were excellent. It was dark and churning, and it's only when you really see them up close, again, you realize, oh yeah, how many of the riffs are so kind of like hypnotically dark. I don't think they're a band who have standout, for me, parts like Morbid Angel or something, or Death.
John Roach went to go and see him in London there not that long ago, and they sold out the Electric Ballroom. It must be over 2,000 or whatever. But he said they were fantastic, really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, they are. You can't argue with it. And also because it was never the most technical stuff on the drums and stuff, and they not bogged down in now having to replace a drummer who had spent 30 years going, like every other super fast band. I mean, it's kind of got this groovy, But yeah, I mean, it was dark as fuck when we was watching them. It struck me like, woof, especially albums like The Bleeding and stuff.
Yeah, well, I think they definitely seem to like epitomize the whole genre for especially kids who are getting into that kind of thing, because you're like,
Yeah,
it's really on brand. Like it's sort of, I don't know, it's everything that you think it's gonna be like,
yeah. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, there's not really much of the old death metal bands. They've all kind of fallen away to a degree. I mean, Deicide still have a thing, but the Morbid Angel and stuff. I mean, my favorite of if you put them all in a row to assess the career has been Immolation. I think they've always been sort of my favorite of all that kind of thing. But if you look on Spotify, they only have like probably 40, 50,000 monthly listeners, and they tour relentlessly, whereas Cannibal is at like 800,000 or something.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth, I don't know. Seeing as the market share for metal is so tiny,
I think it probably goes to show that there's a lot of 14-year-olds who are listening to one Cannibal Corpse song, as in like, people who are getting into like death metal or extreme metal, they'll go and check something like that out. Whereas maybe band like Immolation or something, they mightn't hear them for a year into their journey,
Well, Immolation is, I mean, I think it's got not got the chunky headbanging riffs, and it's sometimes, I mean, you know what it's like in Germany, anything that's just too fast, they like the bolt thrower riff, the headbangy amount of Marth bits. They don't like the crazy chaotic dissonance of Immolation. But then again, Immolation was really never supposed to be the 2000 fucking a night capacity band.
No, probably not. Like, I think it was always supposed to probably be in the underground to some extent, like, So what was our topic of conversation?
Well, the last time we were kind of like stuck in about 1995, 96, assessing where hair and glam rock bands went after the 80s into the 90s, and how they were kind of like stranded to a great degree, and the awful artwork and the production values. And I mean, you could look at the return albums they made, but that's very, very niche. I mean, we just end up talking about When Lightning Strikes Again by Dokken, or the 2000.
Were they that popular though? Even those records that were like comeback records, I don't think.
Well, the Rat one did, like, I don't know, it did like 50,000 copies and went into the when the first 2 weeks something went into the Billboard top blah blah blah. But I mean, whatever. But were they that popular? No, not really. I mean, the Dokken album is great. That Lightning Strikes Again record. That is a
no. But when's it from? That's like from
2006, maybe.
Is it?
Okay. Maybe 8. But here we've already just started talking about Dokken again already.
Right off the bat. Yeah. So that is it. It's kind of like talking about, did it say 1997?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like, remember those things that were going around on Facebook? Name the top 20 records from such a year, and people used to always keep tagging me in 97, 98 because I'd said that was the worst era ever for heavy metal, and I still sort of stick by it. I'm not sure if we had talked about that before, but 97, 98, you've got Priest and Maiden in there, and all the old traditional metal bands are on this low ebb. Mm-hmm. The kind of second wave of death, or the death metal wave of 87 to 92 is kind of run out. It's it's before the black metal, new doom, devil's blood kind of, witches of Instagram, occult metal stuff that was incoming. I didn't explain that very well in 99, 2000, 2001, which kind of pushed everything into a much more interesting direction. It's the black metal bands was largely Dimmu Borgir and Cradle, although Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk, Emperor came out. There's
some stuff like Catatonia and stuff was like sort of, or like, because actually whenever I was having a look at some stuff for this, I went and had a look at festivals from around then to see what kind of bands were playing at, or what, and like you saw a lot of stuff like, Arch Enemy and Catatonia and things like that, or Do Scented, on early, early program,
Well, I went to Dynamo 97, and I think the headliner was Tiamat.
And Exodus.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Exodus played after Testament, and we heard the intro. Yeah. Me and Dara from Evictive looking at each other, and I just went, and I was like, because Bonneville Blood was like my fucking record. just ran up to the fucking and then went, oh, what the fuck? It was, Gary Holt was kind of like a sort of new metal slick back guy. Rick Hunt seemed to be wearing dungarees with a bag on his back, if I'm not mistaken.
Brilliant.
Um, um, then fucking what's his name was wearing the ice hockey outfit.
Yeah, Paul Bailoff. I always thought it was like some sort of like Russian, Olympics tracksuit or something like that. It was like a big, I
I
like
think it
as
was
if
a
you were
Russian ice hockey outfit from the 1980s with the big
right. Okay.
socks. And
Yeah.
I didn't, of course, I didn't expect them to be wearing the inverted crosses. And I thought that, but I was just like, oh, what the fuck? Look at this. And they sounded cool, but it was like, chunky, not,
Yeah.
not speed metal. It was okay. And then Marilyn Manson, I think, played Korn. What Marilyn Manson jumped around while people threw mud at them. Um, yeah, it was. And it was the first time I ever went to a huge, huge festival. I mean, um,
Well, there
it was
can't have been that many back then, was
no,
there? Like,
not that huge. No,
with Full Force was a big one, wasn't it
yeah,
back then?
but that was just kind
Um,
of the other side of Germany, too far away. I mean, me and Dara decided to go to Dynamo '97. I think like 5 days before, and we got a flight for €15 with Ryanair. Right, we bought our tickets, €15, and we thought, being two Irish gombeans, we thought, oh, we'll get there a day early. There'll be a party in the town square at the train station. We'll stay up all night. And got there, and it was just like, tumbleweed. And then this cop kind of stopped us, asking us, who the fuck are ye and where are you going? And we're like, oh, we're just two gobsheens like knocking around. And he was like, well, do you know anybody? And I had my little black book, and it had Maurice Svinkels from Occult, his number, and he lived in like the next town. And the cops rang him and said, yeah, we went to the cop shop, and they rang him and they said, and Dutch, you know this guy? Yeah, he's here. Any chance he can stay in your house? And he drove in his little car, and he had work the next day and collected a very excited me and Darren. We stayed in the kind of old Occult house he had with Rachel, I think back then, 97. And then he got up for work in the next morning and kind of kicked us out at 8. And we went back in. We were like the 10th 11 people in the queue waiting to get the bus to Dynamo. And slowly but surely, like 30, 40,000 people queued behind us. And when we got there, of course, your mind is just blown. You've never seen anything of that fucking scale. And it was, I think Metallica were playing Manowar. I might be mixing up the years. I'm not sure. I think
that was 1999 that they had Metallica, wasn't
No,
it?
no.
They did God the Metal and stuff as well, didn't they?
Okay, yeah, maybe not. No, 99, yeah, it was Metallica Manowar. 98, I went through 98 as well. And that was Deicide and Saxon, Pantera, a very, very drunk Pantera, where Phil Anselmo spent the whole time shouting at the crowd, telling them, go and watch Saxon, which we duly did. Death played, Rammstein played, who I'd never even fucking heard of. And then 97 was Tiamat.
Exodus, wasn't it?
Sentenced, yeah. There was like tons of Irish people. We used to go for like we used to go with like for on €20 Ryanair flight. You pay for your ticket. I remember going there once with like 10 quid in my pocket, for like 2 things of chips every day, or 20 quid maybe. If you could bum some drink off somebody, and I ended up buying like 3 12-inches or something, and that was had actually completely, you had no money whatsoever. Find a tent or something.
So I think they had a Milwaukee Metal Fest around then, and they had that was when SOD first got back together.
Yeah.
Because I remember looking at it and seeing that the headliners were Exodus and SOD, and being all like, "Wow, that must be the first kind of germs of like people having an interest in thrash again."
Well, there
Funny enough, there were other people on the bills for the like Forbidden, who were making whatever awful albums around then in the late 90s, and I don't think anyone particularly cared if they were together or broken up at all, really.
Well, it was kind of interesting. One of the Vacans, I think it might have been 98. You could see there was a sea change happening where Hammerfall were on the main stage, and it was a big, big deal. Like, oh, can Hammerfall, maybe 98, can they actually really do it? Because traditional heavy metal was so anachronistic. And then in the 10th stage, it was like Blind Guardian, Iced Earth, Saxon, Angel Dust, I think, and a few other bands, and the tent was packed, and people weren't even sure. I mean, Saxon playing to like 10,000 people in 1998 was just fucking crazy, you know.
They must have just thinking this was the second coming. Like it was like hallelujah, no more playing in Wrexham to 20 people. Look, you know.
But it kind of was, and most people don't realize it. But it was on the back of Hammerfall, Glory to the Brave, mainly. I mean, you had Imaginations on the Other Side, that Blind Guardian album, which I still love. I love that record. And then Somewhere Far Beyond was huge. But Hammerfall, Glory
you have to give a little bit of credit though, man, to like bands like Running Wild and Gravedigger, who in Germany were doing the same kind of slow double bass drummy, as you said, that thing that Germans love. And they like all those early Wackens and, you know, Summer Breeze, all that kind of stuff. It always has those kind of bands on it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Tunes of War by Gravedigger was a huge record. You've got Stradivarius, Visions maybe from that year. Yeah, and I liked some of those records. Certainly liked Behind Guardian, Imagination the Other Side. Like I said, still Born in a Morning Hall. This is great. Manowar, Louder Than Hell is 96. So there was a thing changing somewhere underneath the new metal.
Yeah.
Zeitgeist,
well, there's one of your favorite records is from around then as well. Riot, Inishmore.
Oh yeah, Riot, Inishmore. This is, I love this record. He was fucking underrated. Mike DeMio, is it? Mike DeMio, singer.
Not sure what his name is.
Really great. I mean, he had a kind of Joe Lynn Turner tone to his vocals. Very, very Rainbow Lizzie-esque. Really, the Inishmore is one of the best Riot records, I reckon.
It's kind of hard to even imagine what kind of release it got, I guess. So like they were kind of still popular enough in Europe.
Well, you think the records before, like Nightbreaker, there was a few before which I don't know what even label they were on, but in the mid-90s ones were Metal Blade. And I mean, you know, so they did.
It's that confusing thing, man, isn't it? Like, because you look at, like, there's King Diamond album and the Merciful Fate album from 1997, isn't there? Like, they're both
9.
And Voodoo.
9 is 99, and that's brilliant. I love that. The one before is Dead Again. It's not very good. It's good, but not great. And then what's the King Diamond album? Yeah, Voodoo, I think, you know.
Voodoo, yeah. But yeah, it's weird thinking that like Metal Blade were actually in that kind of strongish place doing King Diamond, Merciful Fate records, SOD records, you know, doing all this kind of stuff and being somewhat relevant. Oh, there was a great band that they signed around then. It was the guy who sang for Hellstar, Destiny's End.
Oh, Destiny's End, yeah.
They were great. I think if they had been around a few years later, they probably would have had a good crack of the whip, you know?
Yeah, but there was a kind of, I mean, the new metal thing was taking over, you could see that, but there was definitely something happening underneath when, you know, traditional heavy metal was returning.
Totally. And I think the reason why that's important, man, is because, like, everything that happened in the early 80s that we were talking about in that 1983 episode was a reaction to kind of some of the pop rock and stuff that was becoming really popular. So I guess it was the same. All this new metal was in the charts. So there was a lot of people who were actually drawn back into the underground. You know, they knew they couldn't get their metal fix from mainstream anymore, you know?
Well, also the fact that the big boys, the Priest and the Maiden and that, they were in this super low position. But, I mean, if, you know, what must Judas Priest have been selling of, what's the album after?
Dugulator.
What's the one after that?
Demolition, is it?
Demolition. Would that have even been doing 250,000 copies physical? I mean, I would say Iced Earth is probably selling more records than that. Blind Guardians were.
I think them and Maiden, their problem with like things like Virtual 11 or the second Priest Ripper one is that the fans had already been well and truly warned off with the previous albums, you know.
True.
So,
but also,
don't really know.
And also, they were up against some stiff competition. I mean, Something Wicked This Way Comes, Iced Earth is a fucking banger. And tell me this.
And Blind Guardian as well around then. That was what people really wanted.
Whose idea do you reckon it was to do all the between song intros on Jugulator, the phone calls and stuff, and the weird, like, what's going on?
Well, I think it can only really fall at Tipton's feet. I think he was really probably pretty in charge of the band. You know, I don't know if it was as much of a democracy as maybe, you know, KK or Rob Halford really. Well, it's Rob wasn't there really, so he can judge the blame on that one, all right, like, you know.
I like the song Bullet Train was okay. And Death Row. oh no, I won't go. Stupidest lyric. I mean, the lyrics on that record are just mind numbing, you know?
But it's that kind of thing, isn't it? I don't think that their version of like their version of failure for Maiden and Priest probably was still okay. I don't think that they were ever having to, go around in a van or anything like that. There were still tour
No,
buses and hotels and
no. That by that
roadies.
way, that was the Ripper stage move.
Yeah.
Shadow
Well,
boxing
like the
in the
Blaze
Monster
Bailey,
Energy.
that's the Blaze move.
Yeah.
Oh.
But at least Blaze wasn't wearing a fucking Monster Energy hat all the time.
You know what? He's come to play in the village near where I live in February.
I have a feeling that could be a brilliant, gloomy, rainy, very cold, miserable Thursday night road trip that could be livened up with about 10 pints.
Yeah. It's just going to be one of those things as well. Like the whole idea that the highlight of the evening would be seeing him playing songs from those Iron Maiden albums that you hate.
But there's something quite heartwarming about it, and also I follow him on Instagram, and to watch him make his recovery has been like you've got to root for the guy, you know.
Yeah. And he does have fans. I'd say there'll probably be like 70 or 80 people there.
Yeah.
We'll have to try and use our industry contacts to get on the guest list.
What, and save yourself the 12 quid that it would be.
Speaking of, I think I have to go and see Motley Crue and Def Leppard now in a couple of weeks in Dublin.
That's next week.
Is that next week? Oh my god. I'm
Next
absolutely
Tuesday. Next
dreading it.
Tuesday. Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw it in America, and we did talk about this. You were in the the gods in your cheapo $400 seats or whatever it was.
Yeah, and seats to sit on the ground were $1,000. And my missus has got like a huge Nikki Sixx tattoo on her arm, and she's like, "I want to spend $1,000 to go and sit go on the floor." And I was like, "We're not doing that."
Did you see the YouTube one where it looks before Mick Mars left, where it looks like they completely fuck up one of the songs, and you're like, "Oh god, how much of this is live?" Actually, it's like the whole, like, Mick Mars keeps playing the guitar, but the bass and everything there all goes out. It's like, oh, okay. What are they doing and what are they not doing? Because I don't think Def Leppard are using backing guitar and bass tracks.
I think there was probably a thing at the start. They were like, we'll alternate headline, and then after a couple of gigs, they were just like, Def Leppard should headline every gig.
Did you watch the kind of like backstage videos of them? It's quite like endearing. The bass player of Def Leppard just seems like a lovely old gent, and he just seems to be like slightly sozzled for every part of the video, just having the best time ever. He's just like totally chuffed with everything. It's quite endearing.
Yeah, some people just seem infectiously happy with their position. It's like Dave Murray and Iron Maiden. He always just looks really pleased to be there, kind of thing, doesn't he?
I mean, I suppose it's got to be best way to be, really, doesn't it? I mean, that's like when I first go and see Maiden in the 90s, it was kind of like having to put your hand trying over where's Yannick going to be? Okay, I need to just see if I can just block him out,
Yeah.
Whereas now you
kind of go. Why people think skipping is a cool, like, why would you want skipping at your heavy metal concert?
And where did he come from? And he was in White Spirit.
White Spirit, yeah. And then, well, he was in White Spirit, and then he was in Gillan. So he was the guitar player in Ian Gillan's band whenever they had their run in the early 80s.
Yeah, my uncle gave me a Gillan 7-inch Mutually Assured Destruction or something, would it be?
Yeah.
But that one had Bernie Tormey, I think, on it, which must have been 80.
It seemed to be like a lot of stuff that Gillan ended up making a name for was doing like covers and stuff like that, like, Running White Face City Boy or whatever it was. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess that's probably a whole different side of the fish, as in like what were the other side of we're talking about metal bands, the classic rock bands, who were around like Rainbow and stuff in 1997. That was, or I suppose Sabbath had just reformed, hadn't it? Because 97 was the Ozfest tour where they had Sabbath for the first time, wasn't it?
Well, the Last Supper, that is that 98, 99 or something like this?
Yep, it is indeed. Yeah.
And so,
because I think that the first one there was the Ozfest in 96, and then 97 it was Sabbath headline that, and they had, like, as you said, like Marilyn Manson and Pantera or whoever else is the support bands,
Yeah, you can see this. I mean, sometimes I look at YouTube and you watch that sort of Donington festival, And even in 91, 92, it's still Whitesnake and Thunder and blah, blah. But by 94, 95, there's a sea change of White Zombie
Totally.
style bands with like dyed hair and dreadlocks, and like the whole thing, sea changes moved, you know?
Oh, it's so confusing as well because I think Donington '95 is one where it was like Slash's Snakepit opening, and then like Skid Row and Slayer, and then Therapy were on after it. Eek and Eek again, in fact.
I can tell you, I should be doing my research while you're talking, you know that? But like, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm going to give out about Therapy, but like, what the fuck are they doing after those bands, you know?
It's probably more of a sign of the weakness, the weak situation that bands like Skid Row and Slayer were in 1995. You know, that someone could like just breeze in front of them like that.
Donington 1995. Yeah, you've got Metallica headlining, Therapy, above Slayer, White Zombie, something I can't fucking read with this funny squiggly notes. Really like, what was that? Warrior Soul. Fucking hell! I saw Warrior Soul playing to about fucking 25 people once in Dublin. Skid Row / Snakepit, Machine Head, COC. So like, yeah, Therapy are second last on the bill. I mean, that's a fucking musical disgrace. You know, no offense to Therapy.
No, but like I think again, it just goes to show that I don't think that there was a lot of. They were probably being all like, Metallica are going to sell every single ticket for this. We don't need to worry about, you know, other bands on the bill. Full stop.
Well, there's popular enough bands there. I mean, I presume White Zombie would had that Sexorcisto something or other. One of their albums that goes dun 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 dun.
Which one though?
Yeah, I mean, he's a man who knew where his vocal key was, and he stuck to that key rather, you know.
But man, like he really, you know, was one of those things that I don't think anyone was really thinking that he was going to come out after White Zombie and have such a insanely successful solo career right off the bat, like, you know.
No, certainly not, and he seems like a pretty interesting dude. All right, I'm not a big fan of the horror movies. You're a horror movie aficionado. Did you like them?
No, they're not very good. So they're not very good at all.
I mean, I liked the soundtrack for some of them. Was it not Terry Hall? Terry, oh, you know the songs. I mean, the acoustic guy from the late '60s. That's I found him through watching those White Zombie or those Rob Zombie movies. Doesn't matter anyway. But no, I mean, they didn't do much for me really. I just thought they were sort of, you know. But am I going to sit here and critique horror movies to you, or you know?
Full Force Festival 1997 was Manowar, Rammstein, Typo Negative, SOD. Sick of It All, Agnostic Front, Biohazard, you know.
Yeah, Full Force has always been the festival that has, that always had like hardcore and punk and stuff in it, much more than. We played there actually. It was our first ever, but we played Wacken in '98, and it was one of the worst. It was abominable. We were absolutely atrocious. We didn't even have the right plugs. We forgot that Germany was an hour ahead. We weren't even prepared to go on stage. We didn't have. Are we supposed to have heads, monitors? No clue. So I was standing in the crowd watching, so just wandering around, and then Kieran was like, we're on in like 15 minutes. And of course I hadn't put any stuff on. I was like, what? Just complete morons. Had forgot that it was an hour ahead. Thought that like we had time. There was another band. Just complete and utter disaster. Thankfully there's only about 200 or 300 people watching. And before, every band on every stage had a huge crowd. And we didn't even have the right plugs. And then I think it was either Riot or Sacred Steel come on after us and just slaughtered us. And I was like, wow. We were just
Sacred Steel, wow. I forgot.
Oh, gods of metal! But we were just fucking, you know, brushed aside. And we learned quite a lot that day. We played Full Force in 2000, I think. And it was the main stage. And we'd never even been on such a huge stage. And we're just before The Exploited and Dismember. Yeah, and it was pretty cool. It started to lash rain, but yeah, that was, I think Maiden played that year. Yeah, Brave New World they would have played, but yeah, Full Force has always been the more hardcore punk kind of one. It's pretty cool, but it's in East Germany and stuff. Well, former East, you know. Slash's Snakepit. I mean,
I remember it kind of being a bit of like, I remember when that record came out in 1997 and being excited. I think we actually went down the day it came out to go and buy one.
Stop, really? You were like, I'm so excited about the new Slash's Snakepit record, I'm going to go and buy one today. because I need to
Today,
hear it.
today, and like what else were we listening to lots right back then? Like stuff like the Backyard Babies and bands of that nature. Like,
There was a whole, yeah, there was a whole load of that sort of new retro rock stuff that you thought for a moment was going to be pretty big, and then it just sort of. I mean, Helicopters
totally.
starting around the same time. I really like the first. Well, actually, I really like Helicopters,
Yeah.
especially the first 4 or 5 records. But you know, Hopeless Case of a Kid in Denial. What record is that? Where they're jumping up and they're angels on the front. That's a great record.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's from around the
high
same era.
visibility. High visibility.
But yeah, you're 100% right. I seem to remember there was a whole bunch of, and not only like that sort of stuff. There was stuff like stoner rock things like Fu Manchu and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
I remember going down to the local record shop where you could buy their singles. You know,
yeah.
which is crazy. Like you imagine that, like a band on a label as small as that having that sort of distribution now. You know, be
Well, I
unthinkable.
mean, you know, those old labels used to have Irish distributors, just solely Irish distributors in the 1990s. I mean, you can see it on the back a couple of Roadrunner, Road Racer, Death Metal records. There was an Irish distributor who was somewhere in the Midlands, which is, I mean, it's kind of
Crazy.
crazy. Yeah, yeah. But like, I
Totally.
remember like when some of the death metal, like when The Day Blessed or The Sick came out that Saturday, we all rushed into town. It was the same day as Mental Funeral, so you had to make a decision with your money.
Oh,
And the sound seller would have sold 100, 200 copies of Blessed or Sick that day, probably, maybe a few more.
pretty
So,
good.
I mean, you'd wonder how many hundreds of copies they would have sold overall. Could be four or 500, maybe, you know.
Will we switch over to this other vid here, dude?
Oh, yeah, hang on. It's. I might keep this new sort of subterranean evil image going. I've got rocking some skulls here. I mean, what more do you
Some
want?
it's very Megadeth's first album type situation to be in, like, you know.
You think so? I mean, really, I mean, I should be wearing my new special hat. I mean, that's the fucking, you know, that's a sort of a deal clincher, really, isn't it?
Wow, look at this. Very Ottoman.
It's a Prussian army officer's hat.
Certainly
I mean,
is.
and look at this. This is a fucking.
Nice. Where could you possibly put that, Mr. Averill?
Well, I mean, that's send your answers in on a postcard. And just to the side for a quick whoop, there we go. See? I mean, it's like
Nobody would
watching
ever know.
it's like watching kids' TV from the 80s, isn't it?
So going back to 97 then,
Oh
like
yeah.
a whole bunch of stuff like Kill Fuck Die by Wasp, you know.
Yeah, let's discuss that record.
Like it's not awful or anything,
No,
because it
I
seems
quite
to me
like
there's
it.
a whole bunch of stuff from around then. There's a lot of like Iron Savior. Well, Outcast by Creator, you couldn't really call it a classic, could you?
No, it's not awful. I went back to re-listen to it to do a creator thing for Zero Tolerance magazine, and I found it not. Well, hang on, Outcast is the goth one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Or oh, okay,
It
I'm
is.
thinking of
It's the double bass cello-y kind of one.
yeah, it's got some you know leave this world behind bits to it, but I think didn't Creator try and go on tour then with Moonspell and wear like
Makeup. Yeah.
PVC tops and stuff, and it was like, yeah, come on. I mean, I remember having a conversation. I probably said it before because we always keep repeating the same things. But Millie, having a conversation with him, he just said, "Look, if I didn't make those records, I couldn't have made Violent Revolution. That's all right, you know."
I think probably people would be a lot more interested now if they, for every, you know, Enemy of God or Violent Revolution they made nowadays, if they made a very different album in between. Because, you know,
Yeah.
it seems to be like everything is very, very similar direction these days, isn't it?
Well, I noticed that they made a couple of more thrashy ones, and now it's like this kind of big chorus, trying to be a bit to Monomarthy.
Yeah, it's like
Raise your
nowadays Testament.
fist
It's
in
got
the-
too much of a kind of Gothenburg influence, doesn't it?
yeah, big chorusy kind of stuff or whatever, you know.
But
But
yeah,
now,
so like at least you would say about Outcast and Kill Fuck Die, they're at least albums that people have some interest in revisiting, don't they? You know,
I mean,
because
well, now that you say it, I mean, I liked Kill Fuck Die Time. I hated the sound. The sound is a weird attempt to be modern, but I think there's Kill Your Pretty Face was a pretty good song, and The Horror, is that on that album?
is Chris Holmes back for this one, isn't he?
Yeah, and they made a live album called Double Live Assassins at that time, which I remember really, really liking. And it had the versions of those songs, but done in the WASP proper guitar style, because it's a weird synthetic guitar sound.
It's probably just trying to really compete really with everything else that was going on.
Yeah, I remember interviews with them at the time saying, "Oh, Marilyn Manson's taking our look," and is he okay?
Here in the Now Frontier by Queensryche.
I don't think I've ever even heard that record. Is that the one with the ear on it?
Yeah, it's got a big field of fucking. It's a very euthanasia looking thing. Someone's like, I remember at the time, a lot of my friends loved that Devin Townsend Ocean Machine record. That seemed to be very popular at the time, you know.
Yeah, I had friends who really loved that. I never really understood I saw Strapping Young Lad with Gene Hoglan, and I thought it was okay, but it was so the opposite of what I was wanting to listen to at the time. What I was wanting to listen to at the time was obscure 80s heavy metal records I'd missed and gone back to, speed metal, underground black metal, rough kind of stuff. I wasn't interested in this super tight, very hugely produced kind of stuff. Although, I mean, there's no doubting the talent. But then
you know what must have been one of the biggest ones that year? Now, it's not a metal album by any means, but Aerosmith 9 Lives. That was huge at the time. That had like #1 songs on it and stuff.
Did we talk about this in the last one where one of those records sold 20 million and I made a noise?
I think that was the one earlier, Get a Grip, Pump, or one of those ones from the early 90s. But like, it's mad that like even by the late 90s, they were still fucking absolutely smashing. Now, they were getting other people to write their songs and stuff, but you know, I don't think there was any other bands of that era, you know, that classic rock era, who were still having top 10 hits, never mind #1 hits or anything.
No, or selling 10 million records or something. No, I mean, they were all sort of a done deal. Well, I mean, why were they propelled on by the ballads that were in movies, or?
Well, yeah, like I Don't Want to Miss a Thing that was around then, and like Pink, and a whole bunch of songs. They had a, but then again, like they had like hits in the mid '90s, and I think they're one of those bands like Bon Jovi that Americans just fucking love, like, you know.
Yeah.
Did The Haunted have a record around then, or is that later?
The Haunted Made Me Do It maybe is like 2000.
Later, yeah, it wasn't,
because I worked on a tour with The Haunted. I think the first one might be 98 with the kind of flames around the logo. And here's a band we were talking about at the weekend who just got dropped out of the annals of history. That's Witchery. And they used to be like on the cover of Terrorizer. They were all over the place. They were like a really fucking big deal. And then just like gone. It's really, really strange.
It was hard to know, you know, the people's circumstances. Maybe they just all had families and had to get jobs.
Oh, I mean, they kept. I think they kept making records. There was a bit of a gap. They kept making records, but like they kind of came back, and you thought they might be worth something. You know, remember talking to Jensen about it, the guitar guy, and he was just like, kind of like, I don't know, but like 2099, they were on the cover of fucking.
I'm looking through the list here, and funny, there's 3 in a row here. Jugulator by Judas Priest, The Fourth Judgment by Jag Panzer, and Unleash the Beast by Saxon. I would say at the time that Jag Panzer album was probably the most popular out of those records. Like Europeans seem to be on a real buzz about stuff like Jag Panzer in the late 90s, you know?
Yeah, I bought that record. What's the first song? Is it oh fuck, it's
fucking Thane of Cardor albums, or the after that, isn't it?
What's the song? What's the song like the first song on that? It's Iron Eagle, Iron Eagle. Blah. Is that?
I had the one after it that had the Macbeth.
Oh,
stuff. That was so disappointing. And like again, from the era where, because you had no internet or anything, people are like, "Oh, you have to listen to Jag Panzer, this awesome power metal band." And I just, bought like whatever Manowar record, so I went and bought this new Jag Panzer record, and it was just the worst. And like back then, it was like $17 for a CD.
Yeah.
So you're like,
I mean, I'd followed Jag Panzer from. I mean, I wouldn't say I'd had him Ample Destruction in the 80s. But I got Ample Destruction on CD somewhere in about 91 or 92, and that's one of my favorite 80s obscure records. Or if it's obscure, it's an absolute fucking stormer of a record, Ample Destruction. I would swear by that record. I still play it to people now, and they're like, what the fuck? Where, it's so powerful, and the singing is so fucking incredible on that record,
Didn't they have some sort of horrendous misstep for a second record as well?
The second one, Yeah, it's something happened to them. I think they changed vocalist and they tried to make the sound a bit more light. It's a bit more keyboardy. The production is weird. The vocals are super loud.
Yeah.
And it still has some good songs on it. But yeah, but they were also, what label were they on? They had nothing. It's like they had nothing solid, you know? Like Ample
Yeah.
Destruction has two pretty awful covers, and you know, have you ever seen the cover of the first 12-inch?
Yeah, it's one of those things like, you know, the Attacker Battle at Helm's Deep, where the name Attacker is in kind of like a crazy prices style price bubble, like, you know, as if it's on offer.
Keep talking there, and I might just
Uh,
be able to find it just at hand because it
You know
is.
what though? In my opinion, the thing with stuff like Jag Panzer was that all these bands were getting into Maiden, and then when they saw like Queenstrike taking off, they're like, "Oh my god, there'll be loads of rooms like us or Fates Warning or whatever to just be kind of Maiden type bands." And like by then, the mainstream in America either wanted softer or heavier stuff. You know, there's no room for epic power. You know.
Well, can I just draw your attention to I don't know if you can see this because I've got everything so gloomy. The cover of the first Jag Panzer 12-inch, has like a woman in very scantily clad woman, but she's got a chainsaw and she's just massacring this bunch of like bozo heavy metalers. Doesn't even have their logo on it. Look at that. It's quite the proto-feminist work of art, I think, on some level. Do you know what I mean? She's also got an eye patch.
Excellent. And a load of bats flying around the place because that's it. Did they have the classic thing on the back of that where one of the guy's photos is bigger than the rest, or one of them smaller? Oh wow, equal
Yeah,
at first, lads.
They're all equal, and one of them has a killer mustache as well. I mean,
there's the tyrant.
No, he's Rick Hilliard on the drums. I mean, it's a great 12-inch, but I mean, they're doing some very important work for the role of the empowering female archetype in early heavy metal.
It's so strange, isn't it, though? Like, again, I think that's like talking about the influence that Mad Max had on people. You know, so many of these bands had the exact same idea where they're like, it's going to be a destroyed city and there'll be a sexy woman on a motorbike, or she'll have a sword, or she'll. But you know what I mean? That's so kind of like similar. Like,
but that's Thunder Steel. It's like a guy who's sort of a tank with a sort of androgynous woman in a kind of weird metal catsuit thing with a flamethrower. Or look at Rogue Male, you know?
Yeah. It's weird because I always think, whenever I think of Rogue Male, I think of other things like that, like Evil Invaders or Unveiling the Wicked by Exciter, where it's like a really crappily done half face, but somehow Rogue Male just make it look even worse. Like,
I like the Exciter one with the hand coming around the corner of the door, but it's kind of just holding a little penknife. Not like brandishing, just kind of like like a little, you know, nail cutters or something.
So yeah, I don't really have any opinions on the Saxon album from now and then. Like,
I know that one. It's got Terminal Velocity, which I quite enjoyed at the time.
So would you say, right, maybe biggest metal albums of that year, Machine Head, The More Things Change?
I don't know anything about that. Is that the one where they went all kind of new metal-y and had spiky hair and stuff?
That's the one before they started wearing tracksuits. So like lots of people who like the first album would like it. You know, it's very, very popular.
Was that? I mean, okay, but is Bloody Kisses is out for 2 years then, I suppose. So
Take My Scars is on it and some other songs of that nature.
See, I had no clue about. I don't think I've ever even heard this record. I don't think I've ever even listened to Burn My Eyes. I mean, I know that.
What about Reload by Metallica then?
Yeah, I mean that's probably the 4 or 5 million copy selling record. I mean, what else by metal? Unless the first Korn album is just about to break, which I think it probably is, right?
No, the album out before this, and then they had Follow the Leader come out in 1998. So there's no Korn album or no Deftones record or no. Actually, no, maybe the Deftones around the third. No, it was 1996. But yeah, so I'd say Reload is probably one of the bigger ones, really, isn't it? Like 1997.
Yeah, it's probably still doing 6 or 7 million.
Top 20 singles, you know?
Yeah, it's probably still doing 6 or 7 million, even if people were a bit like meh about it at the time.
Do you have any opinions on it generally?
I mean, it's the same thing as Load. I mean, I think that we probably talked about it before, but what they were trying to do, I could see the reason why. I think there's one good, it's a cliche, but there's one good record between the two albums. But they just weren't quite getting the 70s scuzzy, sleazy rock star vibe out of it. It's still a bit too, like, I could see those songs being better done by Danzig on Lucifuge era. You know what I mean? They could have a bit more swing and sort of filth to them, you know. But they're all right, you know.
Yeah, I think it's the definition of a halfway house. There's like, I really, really like this record because I was kind of young whenever it came out. But I do feel like, yeah, it's very similar to Load. I don't know though. Like, I think Load has a lot more introspective or melancholy or experimental things going on, whereas Reload feels a bit more kind of like, here's more AC/DC drumming and, you know, ZZ Top riffing kind of stuff going on, you know.
Except it just doesn't have the kind of swing and dirt and that kind of whatever that
No.
sort of New York scuzz, that sort of sleaze they're going for. It just doesn't really make sense from the band who wrote The Shortest Straw, you know, at least not
I
to.
think it certainly seems like from that era anyway that there was a decided push, you know, like, let's make sure that it sounds a little bit like, you know, a modern record. Like, you could say maybe it's similar vibe to the Alice in Chains album from around the same era or something. And like, image wise, they were certainly under, like, you know, a lot more pressure. You know, in the Black Album, it was like, you can just have your crazy mullet and handlebar mustache and black vest. Whereas now it was like, you're going to need this designer beard and giant stogies and Kiss Him, or, you know, whatever.
Well, what Slayer record is from that? God Hates Us All, is it?
This is the year before Diablos came out, so it came out in 1998.
So what else is on the list then from 97?
Cryptic Writings by Megadeth.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this record. At least half of it I really like. I'm not too, couldn't really give a shit about things like Almost Honest or Use the Man, but there's some good songs in it. Trust
Seemed like they were certainly on a kind of vibe where it was like, let's try and write a big commercial song. We'll try and write something poppy and then try and do a metal song. Because the previous album, you know, Euthanasia and stuff, it was very 4/4, like slower songs. Whereas this album has like at least 3 or 4.
It's got the
like
Disintegrators.
really fast songs.
Disintegrators is on it, yeah. But then it's got some of the songs like are just I really like Trust. What's it? Secret Place is on this. This is a good song.
Yeah, there's a couple of you don't like Almost Honest, do you? But there's like some other cool songs like around that sort of ear, Mastermind and stuff, and like obviously they were in that zone of saying, right, let's write commercial songs, and they had like several hits on radio with it. So
I think also, I mean, there's black metal stuff. There isn't much going on at the time. I mean, there's some underground stuff, but the scummy, filthy black metal from 1990, 91, 92 is kind of pretty much gone. You've got some experimental stuff.
Well, I was going to say to you, dude, surely this though must be the kind of Cruelty and the Beast come out in 1996, didn't it?
Yeah.
So this is the year after, because a lot of the festivals like Milwaukee Metal Fest or whatever European Dong Open Air, it seemed to be Cradle of Filth were always kind of placed pretty highly on the bill because that album was a bigger deal, really, wasn't it?
So 97 is Enthroned Darkness Triumphant, which is fucking huge. Blizzard Beasts, which is not a great Immortal record. Natan's Madrigal, Ulver. Anthems to Welcome at Dusk. Okay, The Olden Domain, Dark Side Necrophobic, Pagan Prosperity. Dead Poem, Rotting Christ. Yeah, all right.
Is the Entombed record around then rated at all?
Yeah, I think that's a good record. Wolfslayer Abyss, Eld by Enslaved. Okay, Destroyer 666, Unchain the Wolves, Nocturnal Mortem, Nog Elfar, Summoning, Comfar.
That's actually probably part of the reason why Devin Townsend actually had a bit of thing, because he had Strapping Young Lad albums out as well as solo albums in that same year.
Actually, looking at this list, I mean, there's actually quite a few things I like. There's not so much things that I love, but there's lots of things. I mean, Absu, Third Storm of Cythro, Arcanum, Psy had an EP. Yeah, okay, so it's not as bad as I had it in my head.
What about Accident at Birth? That must be the first good solo album by Bruce Dickinson, is it? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, I bought it kind of like somewhere in that year for like £3 or £4, and I quite remember enjoyed it. But I mean, I don't think I've listened to it since.
It's very 90s. Like there's no way that it couldn't be considered a back to the 80s style record or anything. It is trying to be very, very modern, I think.
It's just that it happened to have Adrian Smith on it that kind of made it a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't say I've listened to it since that year, you know. There's quite a lot of records that have sort of See, black metal was in a weird place there where it was beginning to get a bit sort of, deliberately transcendental, all a bit kind of hippie-ish, slightly going up its own arse with keyboards and progressive stuff, and an awful lot of stuff sort of at the time looking back feels a little bit like the Dire Straits Brothers in Arms video. It's very
Right.
of its time of young men in their early 20s thinking they can, we did it with Journey's End, all this kind of
Is the
introspection.
Vader record from that year any good? That must be one of the
Vader,
first Vader ones, is it?
Ultimate Incantation's the first one. I'm not sure what Vader record is from that year.
Uh, uh, Black to the Bind.
Oh, that's a good record. I like that.
Don't know what. There's other stuff like Deceased. I don't really know, were there ever that many big fans of Deceased?
No, you've got
Like it seems like an American only sort of thing.
Serpents of the Light, Serpents of the Light, Oracle by In Flames, Death Metal by Dismember, Inside the Final Chapter, Hypocrisy, Dark Tranquility, The Mind's Eye.
Is there a Morbid Angel one from around then, or is that the
No, I think that's the year after. Year after is Formulas. So I mean, there's Grand Grimoire, God Dethroned. Yeah, okay. There's some more. It's not my kind of Forever Underground Vital Remains. I like that record. So okay, this 1997 is not as bad as I remember, but
in terms of international touring for bands like that, though, I don't think it was a particularly positive time for like a lot of the bands that we were talking about here. At festivals, like be it like people like even like Ed Guy, Saxon, Rhapsody, I don't think that those bands were in a position to be able to go and do a tour of the UK,
no.
or like a tour of Spain or something like that. It was really.
It depends. I mean, if you look at the death metal bands, I mean, you have the No Mercy tours, which were going around, which were like pulling thousands of people. They were like stacking the bill. Deicide, Morbid Angel, Marduk, Vader, and they were. I mean, I went to a few of those back in the day. I worked on a few of them, doing merch and generally.
Me too. I used to go to the No Mercy ones whenever it was like Testament, Nuclear Assault, and
that happened. That happened
like
a
maybe
little bit
2 or 3 years later.
Yeah, that happened a little bit later. But some of those ones, I remember being at one in, I don't know, Holland or Italy or something. And I mean, there was like 3 or 4 fucking thousand people at it. I mean, they were big deals, and they were stacked lineups. I mean, you had like.
But again, that went so well. That went from the kind of thing where those No Mercy or Metallica bills were doing so well in Belgium and Holland and stuff that they started doing them in Germany and stuff, and then started eventually doing them over in England. Or I don't think they ever came over here. Those bills, did they?
No. You'd get them in Italy. You get them in Austria and stuff. And yeah, I mean, they were fucking huge. But the bands back then were probably playing for like 1,000 Deutschmark, or no, so let's say the equivalent of €1,000 per night. They weren't. You know what I mean? It was all just cash in hand. Here you go. There's your merch. Bang, 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 bang. They weren't. The understanding of probably what they should have been paid for the ticket price versus, this kind of stuff.
But they were still probably actually seeing an active bump on the record sales.
Like without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Like Running Wild was going out and playing those shows. They were probably coming and seeing that they sold another 4,000 records.
Well, I don't. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't think Running Wild in the 1990s were touring. I mean, I don't think they were European touring. I mean, I think they stopped that somewhere in the early 90s. But certainly the death metal bands were seeing huge fucking. Because if you think about the first death metal tours in the early 90s, 50, 100, 150, 200 people, and all of a sudden growing to like Deicide are headlining in front of fucking 3,500 people in fucking Holland.
I'd be interested to see. You wonder what the biggest show that ever really took place in England, like, as in until recently, where you could get someone like, I don't know, like fucking, like, I'm trying to think of like an example of even like an extreme band who could play Brixton Academy. But there's probably someone like Carcass, maybe, like. I don't know if they could, though. Could they? Like, that's very big, 3,500 people.
Well, Brixton Academy is bigger than 3,500, isn't it? I think it's like 7, isn't it? Or 8?
I think it's 3.5.
This is why we have the internet in front of
it. But yeah, answers in a postcard to that one, because really around then, like, I guess, like, Cradle of Filth, probably smaller venues still, though, like, Norwich.
The capacity is up to 5,000 without seats. Seated is 2,315 is what it says here. There you go. 5,000 back in those days.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean,
on the Brave New World tour, so that
were Cradle able to play to more than, 2,500, 3,000 back in when they're big days?
I couldn't imagine. I'd say they were either doing 2 nights in the Story or maybe doing like, the Forum or somewhere of that nature and that would have been like when Her Ghost in the Fog was on TV all the time.
But I mean, apart from festivals, I mean, even if you look at those old shows, tours of like Manowar and stuff in the 80s, they weren't playing to like 8, 9, 10,000 people a night. They were doing 2 or 3 with
Yeah.
1.2, maybe not even that, maybe 800 up to 2,500, 2,000
Well,
maximum. But
I
like
remember talking to Andy Sneap about this, and he said that whenever Sabat were supporting Manowar in 1988 in Spain, that they were doing 10,000 people a night.
yeah.
Now that could have just been because it was Spain and not very many bands went there, and etc.
Mm.
But
I mean, even in the 1990s, videos that Manowar made, there's an awful lot of the shows they're doing are 3, 4, 5,000 people. And certainly I know there was a few Warriors of the World shows that were pretty fucking huge.
Oh, big time. But I think that they, around then, they had obviously gone and done shows in New Jersey in parking lots and then tried to go and do the same thing in Florida and it went badly. Or maybe they went and played a show in London and didn't get the same sort of crowd that they were hoping they would. So they just, instead of playing shows where there was no one there, they said, let's just do our own festivals or we'll do big gigs only.
Manowar, Kings of Metal sales. Hard to say, actually. Manowar 6th album released on blah, 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 blah. Kings of Metal Manowar 300,000. I mean, that can't be totally correct. Maybe that's just in the USA. Anyway, I think we probably looked at those before, did we?
Well, I think that Manowar, like, they probably talk themselves into a good position more than anyone else, because as you said, I would totally believe you if you told me that Hammerfall were selling as many records as them in Germany around that era,
I think that, I think wasn't Glory to the Brave like almost 400, 500,000 copies. It was like the biggest selling album on Nuclear Blast for until Mars of the World, I think, I mean, in the Joey DeMaio podcast, he says something like, we made Nuclear Blast. Before that, the biggest one was like 5,000 copies. Hammerfall, Glory to the Brave. It's amazing. The Words of Power podcast that he only did like 5 episodes of or something.
I know, because he was obviously expecting millions of people to tune in, but, like the thing is, he knows the reality of the situation,
Does he?
He was in, yeah, because he was playing bass when I saw them in Belfast in front of 400 people, and that was like 10 years ago.
Don't you think that he probably thought the podcast thing would be a bit more, because he's going to do a spoken word tour at the end of the year, isn't he? And I mean, do we think lots of people are going to show up for that?
I would say that it'll be 50 quid at least,
Yeah,
he would have a prime idea of how much it's worth,
maybe even more for like the 100 or the 80 people who show up.
But those 80 people will be amazing and they'll be like obedient and, raise their hand for questions and stuff. Like there's a great interview that he did before they did the shows in Ireland. And it must have been from Metal Ireland or one of those things. And
really?
Oh, yeah. And the guy's saying, there's a town called Manowar just outside Dublin. Would you have any interest in going to that place? Like, and he's just like, no. And don't. And the guy says, Manowar's tickets are very expensive,
Oh, yeah. This is like, yeah, I think I remember this.
Because he pretty much hangs up the interview. He's just all like, yeah, well, our ticket's the same price as Metallica and Iron Maiden, who are bands who are just as popular as us. So thank you. See you at the gig. Bye.
Yeah, and Carl Logan was busy calling people who bought tickets because my friend Purcell, he got called on a Sunday afternoon by Carl Logan. Hey man, thanks for buying a ticket. He's like, what? Fuck off, Averill. I'm sure he thought it was just like me taking the piss out of him or something. But no, apparently Carl Logan had to like imagine cold calling people to thank them,
But like also what circumstances at that stage where you were like just allowed to take people's phone numbers from their credit card orders and say, hey, is that Alan Everett? Be like, no, this is actually his granny who bought the tickets for him. I'll tell him you're asking from Carl Logan.
Well, yeah, I never even thought about that. Can you imagine doing that now where you're like, yeah, can we just have your phone number? Hey, this is AI Carl Logan here to steal your fucking your voice. So yeah,
we're doing a very good job of not mentioning anything else about Carl Logan in this conversation.
Yeah, it's true. He got to sort of dropped off the face of the map, replaced by a little tiny Czech Republic guy or something, and everyone just seemed to go, "Oh, okay," not mention it again.
Michelangelo Battio is now their guitar player.
Yeah,
He's the dude with the two necks.
I mean, I watched some footage and it was weird. Like he was sort of all over the place, but they
It was
sounded.
crazy. It was him and Joey DeMao, and they were like, let's play like scales really quickly, as if people were going to be like, oh my God, can you
Yeah,
believe it? How quickly they can go. That was it. Like,
I mean, which would have probably gone down like a storm in 1987.
yeah.
But watching them live, I mean, Eric's voice sounded great on the footage I saw. Really good. Setlist was cool. Michelangelo Butter was a bit weird. He was very happy to be there, which I respect. But you know, it was just. I think he should have worn maybe like a Stetson or something. You know.
I think obviously, you know, he's just happy to have done something. Like he's a dude who doesn't seem to have done anything with his entire life apart from have a guitar with two necks on it, like, you know, so
Well, he's very. I mean, I made some instruction. I mean, he was in Nitro. Remember that?
yeah. Great.
Which is it great? It's. I think I have the
Jimmy
records.
Gillette.
And there's Nitro 1, 2, 3, 4, isn't there? I mean, they tried to come back, and didn't they perform it at like Nam with like a drum machine and an electronic bass or something? And everybody was supposed to be, oh my God, like Nitro is back.
They're back, guys. Spread the word to your friends on the street on the corner that Nitro were back in now. Have you seen Jimmy Gillette's vocal training video? It's
Yeah, where he
amazing.
breaks the wine glass.
Yep.
And I mean, his
Excellent.
voice is very high, but it doesn't sound like I wasn't blown away, I must admit.
No, I don't. I don't think. I honestly don't think that it was either amazing or awful. It's just one of those things. What about this whole Axl Rose Glastonbury? Have you seen all this sort of bollocks that's been going on now?
No, what's been I have a WhatsApp group with some old friends, and they were all saying, "Oh, have you seen what blah blah?" And I was like, "What? Where are they playing? Did you just go and see them somewhere?" And they were like, "On in Glasgow." I was like, "Oh, of course, from the couch." Okay, I got it. So then we had our middle-aged male back and forwards about some of the other things that were playing, and I didn't hear much about Guns N' Roses. What's the story?
People were just basically giving off about the quality of Axl Rose's voice and saying that he can't sing and he's an awful singer and all this sort of stuff. You
But
know.
I read some stuff that said he was good. My friends seemed to think, "Oh, it was pretty okay."
But like Glastonbury, you're not getting a pre-mixed version of the sound. They're just giving you like the sound from the soundboard, you know.
Yeah.
So, like, I went to see Rolling Stones at Glastonbury about like 5 or 6 years ago, and at the gig, it was great, you know, because obviously you're standing there with
Yeah.
200,000 people getting sloshed and listening to the Stones, so it's brilliant.
Yeah.
But you know, the sound on the TV mix of it was absolutely horrendous. Look, you know.
Yeah, I think I seem to remember watching that. I mean, I did watch Lana Del Rey arrive 45 minutes late and try and rush through a set and got her the power cut, and now she's announced a gig in a week here, which
Right.
is bizarre. I mean, it's like if you will go on stage 40 minutes late and say I was late because I was doing my hair, they'll probably cut the
Yeah.
power on you. I sadly can't use that as an excuse anymore.
So like basically,
No comment.
Guardian did a big, massive hit job on Guns N' Roses and were saying, "Oh, this is horrendous," and you know,
Of
they
course
shouldn't
they
be
did.
here doing it because all their lyrics are
Yeah, of course.
misogynistic, and etc. And just really sort of. But the weird thing was, there was someone else who was playing. I can't remember who it was who had loads of vocal issues, and they were like, "Oh well, fair play to him for soldiering on through it."
Well, I
You know,
presume they weren't going to call out any hip hop bands who had misogynistic lyrics or
no.
rappers who did, or even Rolling Stones 5 years ago who probably did somewhere.
Yeah,
Certainly.
so but I honestly don't know what I think it's a strange thing because on one hand, right, you're talking about the Guardian or the Independent or whatever paper it was who did the review. Like most of their people who read that are surely more likely going to be of listening to Guns N' Roses age than listening to 20-year-old bands age. I don't know.
Yeah, but that article was written by somebody who probably never watched the show. It was written before they were like, okay, so we're obviously going to hatchet job Guns N' Roses because they're just like old white dudes playing rock and roll. So I mean,
Yep.
it's so predictable as to not even really be worth discussing. You know the kind of person who wrote the article, blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, etc. And like I said, they weren't going to call out somebody I don't know for writing equally misogynistic.
Horrendous stuff. But I don't know. Is it horrendous or is it of the time? Because this is the kind of weird thing, right? Like Winger have that song "She's Only 17," which now is like, no one would write a song like that now, would they?
Yeah, but the problem is that, I mean, the reason Appetite for Destruction captured the cultural zeitgeist at the time is because it was an angry, offensive, dangerous record. I mean, you take away those elements from it and it ceases to be that. I mean, that's the whole misunderstanding that people have now about the nature of rock and roll, because it's not popular anymore. It's seen as an anachronistic, ill-informed sort of pointless exercise just for, old white men, I suppose. And so therefore it's not, I don't think there's any world where they're going to give Guns N' Roses, their classic record, Appetite for Destruction, a positive review. I mean, we sort of know that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you take the danger out of rock and roll, then, you don't really have rock and roll, do you?
Nope.
And I also I just sort of feel like, what happens when you're offended, like the Steve Hughes do? I mean, nothing, just be offended. It's if you want sanitized versions of art, then where do we even begin and end with that conversation? I mean, we've got to go back and which people are doing, and just like clip out bits of everything, and which is exactly what some people wanted to do in the 80s. It's what made rock so dangerous back then.
Well, we were actually talking about this recently, saying that even things like film censorship have gone in the opposite direction than people were thinking,
Yeah.
As in it went from a situation where people in the 80s were editing films to try and, like from a conservative moral high point, say, listen, we don't want to expose you to this, or we know better, so we'll not expose you to it. Whereas now it's kind of nearly the opposite side of it, where it's like, we don't want to expose to anyone who could possibly not enjoy this to it, like,
Yeah, I mean, it's I suppose what it is that it's like a sort of, I think it's like the horseshoe effect, where at some stage the furthest extremes of the people who shout the loudest in the sort of culture war are almost exactly similar. And the people who want to censor Roald Dahl books and stuff, I mean, they now come from the left, where they used to come from the religious right in the 80s.
Well, like I'm not necessarily saying that you shouldn't have an idea of it's not necessarily censoring books. I think it's that certain books were necessary for certain times, and they're not necessary now. Like in the sense that like whenever people were in school in the early 1900s and stuff like that, they're like learning Latin, and they're not now.
Yeah.
So that I don't think it necessarily means just because someone's like, I don't think we should be doing Huckleberry Finn. It's not so much that I think the message of Huckleberry Finn is fucking racist. I think it's maybe the idea is that people can probably fucking find that out another way instead of having to read an old-born book, like,
I disagree. I think that that part of learning about those things is part of that is being able to be challenged and having to have difficult conversations about it and explaining it, and we shouldn't hiding from that kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm doing something here.
I'm not necessarily saying that we're hiding from that kind of thing. I'm saying that whatever the message that you're taking from this could be conveyed in a different way to a younger generation.
Yeah, but you see, I just don't think that it's not our place to. I mean, the fact that the estate of Roald Dahl. Sorry, I'm just sending you another invitation. The fact that the estate of Roald Dahl conformed to somebody wanting to clip. I mean, Roald Dahl isn't taught kids in school. It's the fact that if we want to make books for kids with no villains, with no danger or things that kids find interesting, and I mean, we all read Roald Dahl growing up. I mean, what happened to us? Nothing. I mean, but the idea, it's this moral.
But do you think it's the idea that like what someone's going to read Roald Dahl or read Huckleberry Finn and hear racially offensive words in it?
But there's not. I mean, that's not the case with Roald Dahl. I mean, okay, Huckleberry Finn. I think, isn't it better to hear them and explain the time and have a difficult
I think
conversation?
it's definitely better to do that. I think the one thing that you should never consider doing is trying to edit those works to try and take that
No.
sort of stuff out of it, because that's not the intent of what it is. It's like if you said, right, okay, we're going to go and take every Bob Dylan song that had the N word in it
You
and
see,
edit that out. You can't, like, because the reason why it's in there is to try and prove a point of, you know, the point of view of this character. Like, you know, you're
okay.
not supposed to think it's like a celebration of it, you know?
Well, hang on. We're just going to stop. I set another one up there, so if you want to do it, hang on.
Oh, good man.
Yeah, that was a bit weird. It
Sure.
wouldn't give me the option there for a minute. Yeah, I mean, I think that fundamentally the impulse to censor, I mean, it's an authoritarian impulse that people, you know, they dress up in the language of safety, which is what modern society, you know, that's the buzzword for keeping people safe. But I mean, you know, you can't keep people safe from everything. And also the fact is that we're talking about fundamentally art, the censorship of art. And who are the people who censored art? I mean, it was fascists and communists and authoritarian regimes. And I mean, I watched some woman who wanted to censor Roald Dahl debating a historian, and he pointed it out to her, and she was just like, piff, and, you know, just kind of, yeah, whatever. We've got to keep kids safe. And then you're going, well, really, you want to keep kids safe? And, you know, maybe you should start with regulating, I don't know, TikTok, or, you know, you start with, I mean, you're really going to censor Roald Dahl? That's where you're starting. Point is,
the idea of regulating TikTok, Facebook, or anything like that is not doable. Because if someone said to you, it's the same as like if you had to have insurance, you know, for having a gun or having bullets, people wouldn't get shot because everyone would be like, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, but the point is that, I mean, I understand, but the point of, I mean, it's if keeping people safe is your you know, your maxim or your raison d'etre when it comes to these things, and there are plenty of other things that are better to start with than censoring books from the 1970s. I mean,
no, I certainly think that censoring stuff is definitely not the right idea to do it. But I think whenever you're in that situation where someone's saying, I think that language isn't appropriate for kids or whatever, you're better off trying to figure out a different way to get that information to them. Because as much as I think that Roald Dahl, or, you know, whatever it is, Catcher in the Rye, or any of those books, which are extremely important, and we grew up with them, and they're big parts of our lives, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right thing for this generation, or how to get that message across to people the older they get, you know.
But it's not a message. It's just a book. It's art. It doesn't need justification under, in my opinion, any circumstances. It's up to.
But I'm not saying that it needs to be justified. I think the whole thing is that people are having this outrage thing saying this book is going to be taken off the curriculum. You know, that's where the outrage people are saying, "Oh, no, you shouldn't be teaching that to kids because it has this language in it." You know,
right? But Roald Dahl isn't on the curriculum. It's people wanting to censor a book that children have for generations been reading. It's just seeing as we're using that as the example. It's the same. I think it's a sort of a form of paternalistic intellectual colonialism or something like this, where people are, what somebody is saying is, you are not in your right mind to make a reasoned judgment on the things that you are choosing to read, to see, to
but like, I think
and that's
sorry, yeah, go on ahead there.
And that's not your, or a censor's, or somebody whose impulse is to censor. That's not your place to decide that, because obviously the thing to say to someone like that is, well, you think, and I say this to people who try and cancel metal shows or cancel this, and you think, because you're young and impressionable and, you know, headstrong about changing the world, that this decision ends with you, but it doesn't. You're just a useful idiot for.
But like the thing is, right? So say, right, this is a complex sort of conversation, right? Because right, say there's people, bands who, like, right, say they're not National Socialist bands, have been cancelled in America on university campuses, right? So would you not say that,
what do you mean?
It is at the end of the day totally up to the university if they want to put on those sort of bands? Like, you know, you're
gonna have to give me an example of that, because I don't really know what you're talking about.
Was there not some black metal band who had shows cancelled in California there maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and they'd been accused of fucking having nationalist socialist lyrics or whatever?
Yeah, but look, there's a list you can find that's made by some 20-year-old kid from Portland, which has like 500 black metal bands on it, accusing them all of everything. And we know very well That
But we have our own local version. Like the Mac Lads was the thing that was very popular in the late 80s, but was also banned from playing loads of places. Like they couldn't come and play in Dublin or come and play in Belfast because generally fucking they would get protested.
But that's not what we're talking about now. What we're talking about now is the impulse to censor is not born of any attempt at rationalizing what said band has done or said. It's all just about the authoritarian impulse to cancel because you want to see a band.
Are people cancelling it because they're saying this is a Nazi band, we don't want them playing, or what? Why do you think they're cancelling it?
I think they're cancelling it because it's part of the cultural activist zeitgeist. It's because people have no hobbies, nothing else to do.
But then how come is it that like people would be very happy with Jeff Hanneman with SS dashes on his collar?
It's not
into the death, but
it's not relevant.
It's very, very, very clear that Slayer are not a Nazi band.
Yeah, but it's not. We're not talking about. You can't cancel Slayer. A, they're over, and B, they're too big. We're talking about bands who pull 50, 100, 150 people. The bands that you can lean on the local bar and go, you don't want this.
Yeah.